everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I think one of the things that puts a lot of people off of hobby gaming and perhaps purchasing Games Workshop products in particular is the assembly. It can seem quite daunting. But recently Games Workshop have been doing some good things to make their miniatures more accessible. And this is particularly true for the Space Marine Adventures board game, which I recently acquired. Or was recently sent, I should say, and also the Space Marine Heroes blind boxed products. So what I thought I would do in this little video here is actually, put the miniatures together. So this video is going to show the assembly for the 5 miniatures that come in the Space Marine Adventures board game. The good thing about these particular miniatures is that they go together, as you can see. They go together without glue. They are all push fit, and you don't even need clippers to get them out of the sprue. This is actually a step up from previous easy build Games Workshop miniatures where, although they didn't need glue, you still needed to clip them out of a frame. So now we're just literally snapping them out of the frame. You don't need any tools at all, and you can see that they just push together. So this is the Imperial Fist miniature from Space Marine Adventures. He's called Brother Grimm. He is armed with a heavy bolter, and yeah, it's a nice miniature. What I'm doing for this particular video, I don't know how this is going to turn out in the mix, but what I have done is I have previously shot all the footage of me building these guys, and I am now narrating over my own work. So I'm actually sat here with a cup of tea in my study, just watching myself build these guys, and I'm going to sort of talk through as we go. You can see here that I'm struggling a little bit with the heavy bolter. The reason being, there's some pipe work, there's some cords that I'm just trying to pop out now, that I was very concerned that even though these are designed to pop out of the frame without clipping, it did feel like those pipes were going to bend slightly as I was pushing on them. So I took some extra care on this one, and that's probably something to watch out for, that even though these are designed just to twist out the sprues, there may be occasions where just a little bit of extra care is required. This, like I say, this is Brother Grimm, and he is the most complicated miniature in the box. He has the largest number of components. Still not a difficult build. I am all fingers and thumbs. As you can see, I'm struggling a little bit with the heavy bolter, but you will notice that everything seems to go together quite nicely. There's not a lot of gaps or anything. That is not the case with everything. You will see in a moment there is some gaps do appear on certain miniatures, but all in all, they are very well tooled, very snug fits. And you don't get a lot of sort of loose components that are likely to drop off or anything. You may find the light a little bit garish at the start of this video. I do tinker with the lighting about halfway through, so hopefully, if you're not keen on this lighting setup, that later on will improve matters, or may actually make things worse. We will see when we get to that point. But anyway, so there we go. I've stuck an arm on. What I've found is the sturdiest miniatures are the ones that are carrying weapons that actually connect the two arms together. So obviously the heavy bolter, he's holding it with both hands, and that does tend to make a more robust miniature. You see I'm just jiggling the arm around to try and get it to fit, and then pushing together. And we're about to see the first bit, that's sort of like a join that possibly could have been avoided with a cut in a different place. I'm just squeezing the gun on there, but you can see just below the shoulder that it's not. I'm jiggling it, trying to get it to go together a little better, but you can still see there is a gap there. There's a visible line, and there's no peg or anything to sort of push those together to create a firmer join, so you're kind of left with that slight little gap and that slight little bit of movement. You can see each of the Marines has 2 heads. There's a helmet and a non-helmet head, and I pick the helmet head every time. The pegs on the head are cut in a certain shape. You can see there's like a triangular nodule and they push in, they only go in one way. You will see me fiddle about here trying to get the head to line up exactly right. You cannot cram them in another way. Of course, if you want to cut those pegs off, you can reposition the heads. So, you know, you can customize them if you want them to look in different directions or whatever. The head is a little bit loose on Brother Grimm, as I am demonstrating now. The head, that's the loosest peg that I found in the set. But you know, it's still nice. And then we've just got the backpack, which is in 2 parts as well. This is why Brother Grimm has the largest number of components, is because his gun is in several parts and his backpack is in several parts, whereas the other miniatures don't have that. You can see how it's all tooled together. There's pegs and holes that match up. And I'm about to struggle a little bit with this backpack. It didn't want to snap together. The other parts snapped quite easily. You could feel there was like quite a satisfying click as they married up. But for some reason, this backpack just didn't want to do it. So I'm going to resort to just brute forcing it, and it still doesn't go together quite right. Not bad. You can see there's some slight little nodules where the parts have been snapped out of the frame. So people who you know, want their miniatures to look really nice, they might want to take, you know, a mould line remover to them just to get those little nubbins filed off. But if not, that's what you got. There you go. That's your finished Brother Grimm, and it's a really nice looking miniature. It's quite a traditional stoic pose with a big gun. A couple of gaps, a couple of visible joins, but as a playing piece, very nice. So this is the next miniature. This is Sergeant Casius. He's the Ultramarine. He is the miniature that is also available in the Space Marine Heroes blind boxed range. He's got a chainsword and a very heroic pose. You can see I'm doing the same thing here. Most of the miniatures have a very similar build structure in that you snap the base off. The body is in 2 parts, front and back. You get a left arm, a right arm, a head and a backpack, and that pretty much finishes them off. They're very similar in the way they go together. So, looking for his right leg, which has got a little bit of the scenic base attached to it, so you can get that sort of leg raised, striding forth, charging into battle type of pose. And you can see in this video how easily the miniatures are coming out of the frames. There's not really a lot of trouble. There's like I say, with the heavy bolter on the previous miniature, I was a bit more cautious with it, but generally they pop out without any real bother at all. I'm now going to struggle to line these pegs up. He's got a bit of Elvis leg going on. And as I struggle, the camera goes out of focus. But there we go. We persevere. You can already see it's quite a dynamic pose. It's quite exciting. Chainsword. You can see you can sort of pop them, you can twist them. It's not a problem. And everything is tooled so that in most cases, like here, the arm is going to go in one way and one way only. For people who want to customize, Obviously, you can cut those pegs, like I was saying with the head. All the heads and things are tooled to go, so they're facing in a certain direction. But you can remove pegs and, you know, go to town on moving these guys around. There's definitely scope for customizing beyond the limited customization on the sprue, which is obviously the choice of heads. There are full instructions for building these guys in the back of the rules. I don't know why they chuck the assembly guide right at the back of the rule book. I'm sure there might be some people who open the game and panic a little bit because they're going to see 5 sprues of miniatures and no obvious assembly guide. There's no separate assembly guide. But yeah, tucked away on the back pages, page 13 and 14 of the rule book, there is the assembly guide. So it is there. And yeah, I think they should have probably made that a little bit more prominent. But I think even without an assembly guide, they're quite simple, and it's quite obvious where everything's supposed to go. You see me choosing which head again. Oh, I wonder which one I'm going to go for. All done. And you see that I stuck the head on, and then I thought I'm going to see whether it's as loose as Brother Grimm's head was, and it wasn't. I had a little jiggle on it and it wouldn't come back out, which is good. And that's a good miniature. That's one of my favourites. I think he's really good. Okay, who's next? This is the Salamander. This is Brother Infernus. That's a name that's a little bit on the nose for a guy with a flamer. So I'm going to have a sip of my cup of tea. Don't mind me. Right, now I'm still here. So again, like I say, we've got the base, we've got the back of the body, we've got the front of the body. So it's a very, very same build for each one. This is why I say that even if you can't find those assembly instructions, you know, they're all quite straightforward. There's not anything here that's gonna cause too much in the way of confusion. And because I'm narrating over the original footage, and I've kind of taken the original soundtrack off, you can't hear the satisfying clicks as this guy goes together. But particularly when the front and the back of the bodies go together, you do get a nice click as they fit in. They're very well tooled, as you would expect from Games Workshop miniatures. And just to sort of reiterate, these are the same sort of miniatures, the same quality that you get from the blind boxed Space Marine Heroes range. Because when the Space Marine Heroes range came out in Japan, there were 13 miniatures, and then when the range came out in America and the UK, there was only 9 miniatures, and that's because 4 of them, the missing 4, were in this box set. So there's 5 miniatures in this set. One of them is Sergeant Casius, who is in the blind boxed range, and then the other 4 are, at the moment, in the UK and America, this is the only place you can get these 4 miniatures. Oh, dropsy. I am very cack-handed. I drop things a lot. I do not have very good dexterity. I always say that if I can put these guys together, anybody can put these guys together. We're about to see what I would consider probably the worst bit of construction on these miniatures. There's a very obvious join, which I think you probably already spotted. It is on the shoulder plate there. I don't know why they did that. I think if you're going to put a split down the shoulder pad, it's going to be very obvious that it's there, and it is. It's very obvious. It doesn't go together particularly well. If you were going to paint this guy, you'd definitely want to put a little bit of green stuff in there to fill that join. And I feel like, you know, obviously I'm not a miniatures technician, so you know, what do I know? But I feel like they could have done that in a different way to avoid that join. To prove a point here, I am building this particular miniature out of sequence, because I think... Oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I was going to say I think you're supposed to put the head on first. No, you're not. I'm talking out the top of my head. That is right. You can see that the crack widened a little bit then as I put a little bit of pressure on the gun. And I'm still tinkering with it because I'm not happy. You can see I'm still trying to get that gap to close up, and it won't. Never mind. And now I'm looking at the two heads and I cannot get them to focus. And obviously I go for the helmet. So I'm trying to get the little triangular peg to line up. And there we go. All done. Another nice one. I mean, it's not a very exciting pose or anything, but I think when you're armed with something like a heavy bolter or a flamer, there's only so many poses you can get away with, I guess. This pose is more interesting. This is Brother Frostclaw, because he is supposed to be a space wolf. And that is worth noting as well. The miniatures are in coloured plastic to represent their particular chapters. So you've got grey for the Space Wolf, blue for the Ultramarine, green for the Salamanders, yellow for the Imperial Fist, and then there is a red Blood Angel. But because these are from the Space Marine Heroes product line, they don't have any chapter designations on them. There are no insignias or anything. They are generic in that regard. So, you know, if you want to add these guys to your Ultramarines Force or whatever, you can paint them all blue, and it'll be fine. You don't need to worry about filing off any insignias or anything like that. A one-leg pose with a push-fit miniature is incredibly brave, because you're putting all that push onto one connecting point. This is actually a really odd miniature because Brother Frostclaw does have a bolter, but he's strapped it to his back, and he has no weapon in one hand, and in his other hand he just has his combat knife. So he's gone rogue a little bit. And I'm assuming that's obviously why they picked this guy to be a space wolf for the game, is because it's a very space wolfy thing to do, you know. But yeah, I think in the far future, if I've got an incredibly high tech weapon and I'm facing off against the Xeno hordes, I'm not going to sling my weapon and draw my little knife. I can't imagine a situation where I'm going to go for that option. But it does look cool. Look at that wiggly arm. This is this is one of the worst examples of because the peg isn't tooled exactly to hold it. It's a round peg and a round hole, so there is a certain amount of movement on that particular arm. Obviously, a dab of plastic glue or something in there will hold that, but obviously the point is you're not supposed to need a dab of plastic glue. So, backpack. Struggling with that one a bit. All these backpacks go on the same. They have one connector point, and they click on one way. And that one looks very cool. And finally we have the head. Shouty head or helmet head? So what are we at? We're at 20 minutes here. This video is 20 minutes, and we've assembled 4 miniatures. without any glue, without any clipping, without any filing or anything like that. So you can see they've really done a good job of making these guys as accessible as possible. If you've never done hobby gaming before and you've looked at Space Marine Adventures on the shelf at Barnes and Noble or whatever, and you've thought to yourself, yeah, that looks cool, but you have to build the miniatures. You know, it's really not a struggle to build these guys. You can sit down, you can pop on an episode of your favourite Netflix show or whatever. Other streaming services are available, so my lawyers tell me to say. Yeah, so you can just pop on your favourite show, and before you've got to the end of the episode, you're going to have five Marines assembled. And I'm assembling mine on my knackered up cutting board, but you don't even need a cutting board. You can do these on anything. Just do them on the kitchen table. And they do hold up. I mean, some of the parts are a little bit wobbly, like I showed you the arm on the previous one, the head on the Imperial Fist. But overall, you know, they go together nice and snug. You can see with the body there that just went together really nicely. And again there, you know, just clicked into the feet, and that's a nice sturdy piece. So it's not a chore. It's not like, you know, sometimes even the easy build stuff that Games Workshop have done before, you know, take a little bit of time, a little bit of care, a little bit of effort. But this, you know, is very straightforward, a very straightforward process. Although this is the biggest one to be careful of. You can see that the arm has got the bolter attached to it by very thin pieces of plastic, and there are connector points on the arm and connector points on the bolter. And if you put pressure on that wrong, I do feel like you could probably snap the straps on the bolter. I was a bit concerned about it. There you go. You can see that, you know, it's a very thin connector between it. And that's not going to take a huge amount of stress as you're trying to twist the piece out to snap it. So that is something to be aware of. But on the whole, you know, most of the pieces are very sturdy, very robust. This is Brother Gabriel, by the way, of the Blood Angels. You know, these characters, they have names that are very on the nose. You know, Brother Infernus with his flamer, and Brother Gabriel, who is a Blood Angel, and Brother Frostclaw, who's a Space Wolf. It's yeah, they're not subtle names. They're not subtle names at all. I wasn't exactly sure how his hand was supposed to be positioned, his right arm, at this moment. I haven't actually got it on quite right, but I will correct that in a moment, once I've tried to get the backpack on and realised that I can't get it on because the bolter is in the way. So the characters they've picked for the game, you know, they've picked them so they've got an interesting mix of weapons, because you do have the flamethrower and the heavy bolter. So you've got your heavy support and your crowd control, and then you've got Sergeant Casius with his chainsword for close range combat, and you've got the Space Wolf with his knife, who's another close range guy, but sort of a little bit different. And then you've got this Blood Angel's got an Auspex, so he's got sort of scanning abilities as well. So yes, it's a nice mix. The miniatures lent themselves well to this board game. Final piece, looking for the right head. So this is it. This is my narration is coming to an end. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Like I said, this was a completely new style for me to actually shoot everything first and then talk over it. Let me know whether this has worked or whether you feel it's lost some of the immediacy of me talking while I'm actually doing it at the time, or whether you think this was an improvement because it allowed me to sort of concentrate a little bit more on trying to stay in focus and concentrating on building the miniatures. Yeah, let me know in the comments. You know, and you know, if you like this, chuck me a thumb, and I will see you all again soon. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye.